There's something watching you, from within you. You look out at the world through your eyes, but have you ever wondered what's looking back? Behind every decision, every reaction, every version of you that smiles on cue, there is a quieter presence, a face in the mirror that doesn't blink when you do, a part of you that doesn't speak, but moves everything. Have you ever been certain you made a conscious choice, only to realize later that something else made the decision for you? You said yes, without knowing why. You reacted in anger, without understanding the trigger. You stayed in that relationship, that job, that identity, not because you chose it, but because something beneath you did. Carl Jung warned us long ago, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Most people live their entire lives believing they are in control, that they are rational beings, logical, intentional, self-directed. But the truth, we are often sleepwalking through reality, led not by conscious decisions, but by invisible, ancient forces buried deep inside the psyche. You think you're choosing, but your childhood wounds are choosing, your suppressed emotions are choosing, your forgotten memories, your ancestral fears, your unmet needs, they're all choosing for you. We live in the illusion of control, but beneath that illusion lies a vast, untamed ocean, the unconscious mind. And here's the terrifying part. The unconscious doesn't sit quietly. It moves, it acts, it manipulates the world around you without ever asking for permission. Every irrational reaction, every toxic pattern, every dream you can't explain is a message from that hidden realm. And until we dare to descend into it, to understand it, and to integrate it, we remain puppets in our own story, confused, exhausted, reactive. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents, Jung once said. That burden isn't just emotional, it becomes psychic DNA, passed silently through generations, shaping your life through the unconscious. You may think you're here now, watching this video by your own free will, but part of you, perhaps the most powerful part, has always been watching from the shadows. And so we begin. This is not a tutorial, it's a journey, a descent into the forgotten chambers of the psyche, into the war between the conscious and the unconscious, the known self and the hidden one. Because true freedom, as Jung believed, doesn't come from controlling the world. It comes from understanding your own inner world and breaking the illusion that you're already in control. What if I told you, the version of yourself you think is you, the one who smiles in photos, answers emails, makes plans, pleases others, isn't really you? It's a mask, a thin surface layer of identity we call the conscious mind. In Jungian psychology, the conscious mind is everything you know you're thinking, your awareness, your logic, your goals, your emotions that feel immediate and explainable. But here's the problem. You mistake awareness for depth. You think that because you can name your thoughts, you control them. But thoughts often arise uninvited. Emotions appear like sudden storms. And desires, well, desires often come from places we dare not investigate. Jung called the self-image we present to the world the persona, a mask we wear, not just to fit in, but to be loved, to be safe, to be accepted. In the social mask we wear every day, we forget the face underneath, Jung warned. And so, we perform. We say we're fine when we're not. We pursue goals we don't believe in. We build identities around survival, not truth. But this mask becomes dangerous when we forget we're wearing one, when we think it's the whole story, when we confuse our conscious personality with our entire being. This conscious mind, the ego, is not evil, but it's fragile. It likes the known, the predictable, the explainable, and it resists anything that threatens its illusion of control. That's why people avoid therapy, why they fear silence, why dreams disturb them. Because the unconscious doesn't care about your social mask, it wants truth. And the more you cling to the persona, the more the unconscious has to break through, in anxiety, in dreams, in sabotage. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Carl Jung. To awaken is to realize you are not the face you show the world. You are not your reactions, your habits, your roles. The conscious mind is the tip of the iceberg, but below the surface lies the stranger you've always carried. Have you ever reacted in a way that surprised even you? Said something cruel before you could stop it? Felt an irrational fear but couldn't trace its origin? That wasn't just emotion. That was the personal unconscious, speaking in the only language it knows: reaction, compulsion, sabotage. Carl Jung described the personal unconscious as a vault, a place where everything we've forgotten, repressed or ignored gets quietly stored away. Not deleted, stored. Memories you've buried, emotions you weren't allowed to feel, fantasies that made you ashamed. All of it, still alive beneath your awareness, influencing your every move. Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering, Jung said. When we refuse to face our wounds, they don't vanish, they mutate. They turn into anxiety, perfectionism, passive aggression, endless people-pleasing. They show up as the life you didn't ask for, but somehow keep reliving. And here's the trick of the unconscious. It never forgets. It remembers what happened when you were 6, the time you were shamed for crying. It remembers that heartbreak you claimed didn't matter. It remembers the lies you told yourself just to survive. And like a silent puppeteer, it tugs on strings behind your conscious life. This is why patterns repeat, why you keep choosing the wrong people, why certain comments hurt more than they should, why peace feels unfamiliar. Because the past isn't in the past. It's inside you, waiting to be recognized, integrated, healed. But healing doesn't happen by force. It happens by invitation, through journaling, through therapy, through dreams, through silence. You must listen, not fix. There is no coming to consciousness without pain, Jung wrote. And that pain, it's not a punishment, it's a passage, a sign that the forgotten parts of you are ready to return. You are more than what you remember. You are more than what you admit. You are a vast archive of unlived stories. And until you face the forgotten you'll never fully know who you truly are. There are things you've never been taught, but somehow you already know them. You understand what a mother is, what a hero is, what a monster feels like, even before anyone tells you. Why? Because deep beneath your personal memories, beneath your traumas, experiences, and repressed fears, there exists something older, something ancient, something collective. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious is the inherited part of the human psyche that is not developed individually, but is born anew in each person. It's not just your mind, it's humanity's mind, encoded in symbols, myths, and instincts that repeat across all cultures, all time. Have you ever wondered why the same types of stories echo through every civilization? The brave hero, the wise old man, the seductress, the trickster, the dragon, the descent into darkness. These are not coincidences. These are archetypes, universal templates that live inside the human psyche. They aren't just characters, they are forces, patterns of energy that shape how we relate to the world. They appear in your dreams, in your stories, in your projections. The hero that seeks purpose, the shadow that sabotages, the mother that nurtures or suffocates, the anima or animus, the opposite gender soul image that animates your romantic obsessions and fantasies. And here's the haunting truth. You are acting them out. even when you think you're choosing freely. You may not believe in myth, but myth believes in you. The collective unconscious is not optional. It's the psychological infrastructure of being human, and the more you deny it, the more control it exerts over you. The unconscious is not just evil by nature, Jung said. It is also the source of the highest good, not only dark but also light, not only bestial, semi-human and demonic, but superhuman, spiritual and divine. To meet these archetypes is not to read about them, it is to feel them within, to confront the hero in you that is afraid to begin, the shadow in you that hates what you can't admit, the eternal child in you that refuses responsibility. You didn't create these characters, but they live in you, and until you learn their language, they will rule from the shadows. This is why Jung believed self-knowledge is a sacred task, because to become fully human, you must first face what is inhuman, the collective forces that shaped you before you ever had a name. Have you ever instantly disliked someone without knowing why, or fallen for someone you barely knew, as if they were already a part of you? That isn't coincidence. That isn't intuition. That's projection. In Jungian psychology, projection is what happens when the unconscious sneaks past your awareness and paints other people with the colors of your own inner world. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves, Jung said. You see, the human psyche doesn't like to admit what it fears or what it desires, so instead it casts those things onto others, like shadows on a wall. You project your unresolved anger onto your boss, your buried shame onto your partner, your rejected ambition onto your enemies. That's why certain people trigger you, not because they're evil, but because they reflect something inside you that hasn't been fully seen or accepted. We walk through life like walking projectors, casting our unconscious stories onto lovers, friends, politicians, strangers. We don't relate to people as they are. We relate to them as we are. And here's the danger. The more unconscious the projection, the more intense your emotional response. You idealize someone. That's your inner anima or animus, not the real person. You hate someone instantly. That may be your shadow, staring back at you through their face. This is how relationships become distorted. You think you're loving them, but you're loving your fantasy. You think you're fighting them, but you're fighting your own past, your father's anger, your mother's silence, your own unmet needs. What you resist persists, Jung warned. The emotions you refuse to own don't die. They roam until they find a new face to wear. But here's the good news. Projections are also maps. Every person who triggers you is a doorway. Every overreaction, a clue. Every emotional spike, a signal. By following the thread of a projection back to its source, you reclaim your energy. You take back your power. You begin to see people as they are, not as you need them to be. Jung believed that self-awareness begins when you stop pointing fingers and start asking deeper questions. What part of me am I seeing in them? Because once you stop mistaking your projections for truth, you finally begin to see. Every night, without permission, without your control, the unconscious speaks, and it speaks in the language of dreams. To most people, dreams are random, bizarre, meaningless, easily forgotten, but to Carl Jung, they were sacred, messages from the depths, letters from the forgotten self, written in symbol and story. Dreams are the guiding words of the soul, Jung wrote. Why should I henceforth not love my dreams and not make their riddling images into objects of my daily consideration? While your conscious mind sleeps, the unconscious begins its work. It shows you what you've repressed, what you've ignored, what you're not ready to admit during the day. But it won't use plain language. It speaks in symbols, myths, distortions, because that's its native tongue. A house might represent your mind. A flood might represent your emotions. a stranger in your dream. It might be a hidden aspect of you, the part you've disowned. And when something chases you, it's often something inside you that wants to be seen. Jung believed dreams are not random nonsense, but intentional, living messages. Each image, each character, each emotion in your dream serves a purpose. Your unconscious is trying to get your attention, but most people never listen. They dismiss their dreams as absurd. They forget them, laugh at them, scroll past them, and in doing so, they ignore the wisest counselor they'll ever have, because no one knows you better than your unconscious. It remembers everything: your childhood, your trauma, your fears, your potential, and in dreams, it gently or violently hands that knowledge back to you. Jung often analyzed dreams in therapy, not to decode them like riddles, but to create a dialogue with the unconscious. He didn't believe in a one-size-fits-all meaning. He believed the symbols were personal, yet connected to the collective unconscious through archetypes. A snake might mean transformation for one person and danger for another. Context is everything. But what matters most is this: are you willing to listen, to keep a dream journal, to reflect before reaching for your phone, to revisit the images that disturbed you, because they matter? Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. Ironically, it is in dreams, our most surreal state, that the deepest truths are revealed. Truths our waking mind can't handle, truths our ego tries to bury. But the soul remembers, and through dreams it whispers, "Come back, there is more of you to meet." What if healing isn't about becoming someone new, but about finally meeting the parts of you that were left behind? What if freedom isn't found in perfection, but in integration? Carl Jung believed that the highest goal of human life is not happiness, not success, not even peace, but individuation, the process of becoming whole, not perfect, whole. Individuation is the journey of uniting your conscious self, the persona, the ego, the you think you are, with the unconscious self, your shadow, your archetypes, your forgotten desires, your ancestral memory. It's not a self-improvement program. It's a descent into yourself, a spiritual excavation, a confrontation with everything you've rejected, feared, or denied. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, Jung wrote, but by making the darkness conscious. The darkness is not evil, it's unacknowledged truth, the pain you never processed, the rage you swallowed, the joy you deemed too loud, the creativity you buried under adulthood. Most people go their entire lives living fragmented, playing roles, pleasing others, avoiding discomfort. They remain trapped in their persona, exiled from their own inner richness. But individuation begins the moment you say, "I want to know all of me." It begins when you stop running from your shadow and start sitting with it, when you stop projecting your pain and start reclaiming it, when you stop seeking approval and start listening to your soul. It's not easy. Individuation demands loss, the death of false identities, the grief of facing past wounds, the isolation of no longer fitting into roles you once clung to. But in that loss, something deeper is born: clarity, sovereignty, authenticity. You begin to live not from habit or fear, but from center. You stop asking, "What do they want from me?" and start asking, "What does my soul require?" And slowly, you stop reacting. You observe, you respond, you create, because you're no longer just a personality. You're a psyche in harmony, guided not by chaos, but by conscious awareness. Jung saw individuation as a sacred path, not reserved for mystics, but necessary for every person who dares to live fully. The privilege of a lifetime, he wrote, is to become who you truly are. But who is that? You won't find the answer in others. You won't find it in trends, in status, or in validation. You'll find it in silence, in symbols, in shadows, in dreams, in decisions made not to impress, but to align. The real you has always been there, watching, waiting, whole. And once you begin the journey of individuation, you don't just become yourself, you become free. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that your value lies in how well you perform, how quickly you respond, how much of yourself you're willing to give away. You were handed a mask and told, wear this, be agreeable, be logical, be predictable, be safe. But Carl Jung didn't teach safety. He taught wholeness. He taught that the most important journey you will ever take is inward, into the shadows, into the forgotten, into the pieces of your psyche that were cast away in your pursuit of being good. Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. This journey isn't popular. It isn't glamorous. It's not loud or easily shared. Because true awakening doesn't happen in front of a crowd. It happens in silence, in your dreams, in the moments you refuse to react, and instead reflect. When you stop asking, what do others want from me? And begin asking, what truth have I been avoiding? The unconscious is not your enemy. It is your mirror, your ally, your deepest teacher. And every time you meet it, through a dream, a trigger, a projection, a memory, you reclaim a piece of your power. You stop blaming fate. You stop living on autopilot. You stop reacting to life and begin participating in it. Jung believed that suffering was not meaningless, but a signal, a crack in the persona, a message from the soul saying, there is more to you than this. So, ask yourself, how much of your life has been lived in response to wounds you never understood? How many choices have been made by parts of you that never healed? And then ask the question that ends illusions. What would it look like to live awake? To know your fears, but not be ruled by them. To honor your emotions without leaking your energy. To live not in fragments, but as one integrated self. That is the path of individuation. That is the power of making the unconscious conscious, not to become perfect, but to become whole.